last week. I'm sick of these damn people. This man just sat up here and said that they paying these people $8,000 just to get in our country, and if they can get in, they can do whatever they do. So if y'all know this, get your ass back on the camera. Why the f*** is y'all letting them in here and then giving them $8,000 from Mr. Biden? Sick of these motherfuckers. This man is stupid.
Yeah, that was basically all of America last night. That summed up the vast majority of Americans who have finally had it with this one and done excuse of a president. Others pointed to Speaker Mike Johnson's facial expressions throughout the night. They were absolutely classic. We are all Mike Johnson was trending on Twitter, on X. It was glorious. Even CNN, the most distrusted name in fake news, even CNN was hardly impressed. Take a look.
He talked about Snickers and snack chips before he ever got to the border. He was obsessed with his political rival more than he was obsessed with the condition of the American people. It was so weird. This guy lectures us all on unity, the soul of the nation, and he gives the most partisan convention speech in place of a State of the Union that I've ever heard. It's the literal opposite of unity. It's so partisan. He's obsessed with taunting Republicans. It's not statesmanlike.
Yeah. Well, stop. You're not supposed to say that. Read the memo. He's Biden. What that CNN commentator is saying is absolutely true. Despite the best efforts by the legacy media to prop up this weekend at Bernie's administration, Biden's State of the Union was one massive flop after another. And I'm going to show you guys exactly why. I'm going to show you exactly what was really behind last night's speech and why it's so ominous for the Democrats going into November. But first, gang, our good friend Mike Lindell needs your help. Mike is one of the strongest patriots working tirelessly for the America First and MAGA movements in this country, and also happens to be a very close friend to this channel, as you know. From election integrity to protecting American businesses, Mike really does it all. And now, as the cabal of deep state lawyers and election machine companies are trying to take Mike down with frivolous lawsuits, he needs your support more than ever. Mike recently said he was going to fight every lawsuit until he wins and will never settle out of court with people who help rig the election. So with this in mind, I want to remind you about the incredible MyPillow deals Mike is offering with my promo code Turley. Now, if you just click on the link in my description below, you can save well over 60% on all sorts of incredible MyPillow products. Of course, Mike is offering huge savings on the new and improved MyPillow 2.0. But gang, I would also recommend hugely Mike's My Slippers, as well as his amazingly comfortable bed sheets. These are some of the comfiest slippers and sheets I've ever owned. In fact, I would use that word to describe all of MyPillow's products. Comfy to the maximum. So don't wait, gang. Support Mike as he fights for election integrity and get some extremely comfy things to boot. It's a win-win. Don't wait. Click on that link below or go to mypillow.com/Turley right now. And let's dive right in here. One of the things that I like to do, I've done this with Trump's State of the Union speeches in the past. I do this with Biden's. What I like to do is I like to read it before I watch it. I like to read it so I read the transcript of the speech. It's normally up on the New York Times even before it's delivered, just an hour or so before it's delivered. I like to read it through and then go back and watch the highlights of it. And the reason I do that is because I want to get a deeper understanding of the conceptual content of what was actually said, totally irrespective of the theatrics that surrounds the State of the Union. And I did that. I read through Biden's speech, and I have to say my overall impression of it, honestly, is that the speech really does come across as nothing more than the delirious ranting of a leader bent over, staring cluelessly at the sunset of his dying empire. Pat Buchanan, who's a political hero of mine, he's long been warning us that since the end of World War II, we basically lost the soul of America. Because it was then at the end of World War II that America officially abandoned our identity as a constitutional republic. And instead, at that point, we became officially a global empire. And again, somewhat understandable. I mean, the world was devastated after World War II. Europe was destroyed. Japan was destroyed. The Soviet Union was destroyed. The United States was the sole superpower over the entire world. And we remade that world over the next few decades after our own image, right? The Marshall Plan, the rebuilding of Europe, but now as a servant, a subservient servant of the US interests, the rebuilding of Japan, but now as a permanent subservient servant of US interests, the building of institutions like the IMF, the World Trade Organization, the World Bank, the very institutions that gave birth to the so-called rules-based order that became the world order precisely after the fall of the Soviet Union in December of 1991. The end of World War II and its consummation with the end of the Soviet Union in 1991 represented, according to, I think, Pat Buchanan's very accurate but ominous warning, represented the end of the American Republic and the beginning of the American Empire. What we are witnessing around the world today is the end of that global empire. Now, if you're a regular to this channel, if not, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. But if you're a regular to this channel, then you know that one of our major themes is that today we are entering into what scholars are calling the age of civilizationalism. Today, all over the world, we are seeing nothing less than the great ancient civilizations of the past in almost kaiju-like fashion rising up from the depths below and returning in all of their titan splendor all over the world. Orthodox Russia, Confucian China, Hindu India, Shinto Japan, Ottoman Turkey, Shiite Iran, Pan-African Sahel region, and most especially, what so many in the legacy media are freaking out over, MAGA. Make America great what? Again. See, that's the key to this civilizational renewal. Populations are going back. Populations believe that the way forward means going back to their ancient greatness. The ancient great civilizations are all rising up, and they are effectively replacing the American unipolar post-World War II rules-based order. And they were effectively replacing that unipolar rules-based order with a new civilizationalist multipolar world order. And there is literally nothing that the decrepit caretakers of the old dying unipolar empire, led by an equally dying, desperate deep state, there is nothing ultimately they can do to stop it. And what I read last night, and then what I then subsequently watched in that feeble, frail, sickly delivery, was literally nothing less than a symbol, an embodiment of precisely that dying empire. A dying empire that in its dementia, in its senility, cannot come to terms with its own impending mortality. That's That's what last night, for me, was ultimately all about. That's what we all witnessed last night. That's what the world witnessed last night. It was literally the end of an era. Before it even began, already pro-Palestinian protesters were lining the streets in front of the Capitol building, trying to block Biden from getting to the building. Now, keep in mind, gang, these are Democrats. If you want a sense of just how much this whole regime is crumbling, these are Democrats, Muslim Americans, Arab Americans, pro-Palestinian Americans voted for Biden by 70 points in 2020. They are now coming out as his most staunch enemy because of his support for Israel and his refusal to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. Make no mistake, the Democrat Party is shattering. It's going through a very serious civil war over all of this, and it threatens to bring the whole party down in November. So that's what we saw before the State of the Union even started. And then when it started, Biden simply superimposed that division, the very division you saw out in front of the Capitol. He simply imposed that division on the whole of the nation and the whole of the watching world. Biden began his speech, interestingly enough, with an immediate reference to World War II. But he began his speech, of course, with who else but Putin. Putin and Russia, the sworn enemy of every woke warrior in the West. And not just Putin, but Putin in comparison, of course, to Hitler. Again, this is the language of just a lagging empire, a post-World War II demolition. According to Biden, Putin violated the rules set by a nation that unfortunately continues to think it gets to set the rules for everyone else. That was Putin's ultimate sin. He violated the American-led rules-based order, and it is the job of the leaders of empire, including the subservient servants of Europe and NATO, to enforce that order, lest others think they can violate it as well. That, for Biden, was the single number one issue of his speech. The continued, relentless, multi-billion-dollar support of the glorious Democratic Republic of Ukraine in its hopeless and senseless bid in stopping Russia's assault across Europe, which anyone with even half a brain knows is not what's really happening here. The reality is, as we've talked about time and time again on this channel, as University of Chicago scholar John Mearsheimer has amply demonstrated, it was NATO, not Russia, it was NATO that encroached into Russia's sphere of civilizational influence. Russia's geographical and geopolitical sphere of hegemony was encroached on by NATO, forcing Russia to enforce that geopolitical and geographic hegemony. It's actually NATO's fault that we're seeing such horror in Ukraine today, not Putin's. But regardless, then Biden turned to the threat against the empire from abroad to here at home. I'm sorry, did I say empire? I meant democracy. That's right. Our democracy is being threatened abroad and at home. And of course, right on cue, he referred to J6. Now, remember, according to the caretakers of our dying empire, the orchestrated events of J6 are just as horrible as 9/11, if not worse. You and I are every bit an assault against the empire. There I go again. I'm sorry. You and I are every bit an assault against democracy, as is Vladimir Putin, who remembers basically Hitler. Worse, perhaps. And then he rambled on to what he called another assault on the empire. There we go again. Another assault on freedom. And that's the Supreme Court's assault on women and their right to choose. And they better think twice about doing that again. And to be honest with you, it all just frankly went downhill from there. Tucker Carlson referred to it as perhaps the darkest speech ever given by an American president. And I would argue that's because in the end, it wasn't given by an American president. That's the point we have to get here. What we saw last night, that wasn't an American president. That was the dying, degenerating leader of a dying, degenerating empire. And the world sees it, gang. Make no mistake, Orban, Putin, Xi, Erdogan, Mohammed bin Salman, Netanyahu sees it. Bukele, Maloney, they all see it. They all see a delirious leader of a delirious empire that is in the throes of its last days. Now, Tucker, of course, wasn't alone. Senator Mike Lee of Utah tweeted out, that was by far the single most disastrous State of the Union address I've ever witnessed in my 52 years on this planet.